All right, awesome. Okay, today we are so excited to welcome Jen, who is the Executive Director at Connected in Motion. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself, but also all the amazing things that are happening at Connected in Motion and tell us more about day in the life of a slipstream. So Jen, feel free to introduce yourself, who you are, and how you got started with Connected in Motion.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Jen, and I'm lucky enough to currently be the executive director with Connected in Motion. We have a fairly small team, so that means I wear many hats, but that's my official title. And I've been working with Connected in Motion since we started way back at our first Slipstream in 2009, and kind of how my path took me to Connected in Motion. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 3 years old and was lucky enough to grow up at summer camp. So I had lots of community, lots of connections every summer. But eventually you kind of age out and you feel like you're a little bit too old to keep going back to camp. And so when that happened to me, it actually happened to a fairly large group of people in my local community. And at the same time that we were kind of aging out from camp, there was another young woman named Chloe who had been diagnosed with diabetes at 18 and just had never met anyone with diabetes. She was an outdoor educator and she worked in the camp space, but not at all related to diabetes, never having met someone else with diabetes. And so it was actually her idea to put together a weekend to see if there was anyone else out there who might want to meet other adults with type 1. She hosted that event. It was called a Slipstream, and I went to it as a participant, and kind of came out of that weekend realizing that this was something amazing that could fill a gap that existed for me in that space, looking to connect with adults now and not kids as I previously had, who were living with diabetes. And so I asked what's next. So did a whole bunch of other people. Chloe said, I have no idea. And years and years later, now we have an organization called Connected in Motion, and we run Slipstream programs. So it really, it felt really natural kind of falling into this space. I have a background in education and also working in the camp space. And so this melded really well. I've learned so much along the way, but that kind of got me to be where I am today, getting to host these programs throughout North America and meeting so many amazing people who also live with diabetes and have so many different stories similar to mine and also very different from mine, which is really cool.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I think that's so special that you were able to experience it as like it was just becoming what it is today. So I love that perspective. And I think that holds true to like how you guys continue to do everything that you do. So I appreciate hearing that because I didn't know how you guys started. So I'm sure everyone is excited to know that. And I myself did not ever go to a camp. So I didn't have that experience myself. And I was diagnosed as an adult. So yeah, finding and connecting with other adults with diabetes can be different if you didn't have it when you're younger and had that option to go to a camp. Yeah, it took me some time to kind of navigate and find the community, but once you do, it's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what a slipstream is and what they are today. Kind of, you can kind of walk us through past slipstreams and then also like how you guys decide where to host them.
For sure. I feel like maybe the first piece of that is like, why do we call it a slipstream? And like, what is that anyways? And that actually goes back, I mentioned Chloe, who's Connected in Motion's founder, to her very first meeting of someone with diabetes. And it was when she was in Australia and New Zealand doing backpacking. And she like, I'll tell this whole story. So she came across an area where a road was closed because there was a road cycling race going on. And so they paused to watch, she and her now husband. And there was a group of cyclists that went by that were wearing jerseys that said type 1 diabetes. And she had never met other people with diabetes, let alone people who were like doing something this cool and this exciting. And so she was able to actually meet up with that team and ask them questions and just be like really excited to connect. And they invited her to join in on the rest of this race. It was a 24-hour kind of group relay race where they had a bus going along and people jumped out and rode. And they said, like, she said, I've never been on a road bike. Like, I can't do this. They said, you can just get on, keep your wheel really close to the person in front of you, and you're going to ride in our slipstream. It's going to be really, really easy while you're riding with the group. but when you're ready, you can kind of take a chance out front, and it'll be really hard, but you'll know that you're like driving the entire group with you and you're doing the work to make it easier for them. And kind of while that was happening in the actual biking, that was also happening in her diabetes, because for the very first time, someone like leaned over and gave her fruit snacks when they noticed she looked a little low. And that had never happened because she never told anyone she had diabetes. And so she was realizing that there was like this physical slipstream, but there was also this like feeling of the slipstream happening in the diabetes community. And so that kind of sparked the idea when she came back home to host this very first weekend, and thinking that, how cool is it that we can get a group of people together and life with diabetes becomes easier, and everyone can kind of take a turn in the lead and take a turn pushing and when they're ready. But you can also just kind of follow along and learn and glide. And there's so many different ways for you to be involved. And so that's like, I feel like that's a really good description of really what still happens today at a Slipstream weekend. And so the weekends are typically, they're 3 days, a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. No matter where in the world you attend one, they really flow very similarly, but you'll find a different vibe and a different culture and a different types of activities depending on where you go, because that's really adopted from the local diabetes community that we connect with in those areas. But it's a meld of social events. So Friday night is really social, meeting people, giving you opportunity to, in small groups, connect or connect with larger groups and through games and chatting and storytelling. And then Saturday and Sunday we like to say it's like choose your own adventure. So you'll be laid out with a bunch of opportunities to either attend sessions, which similar to you might attend at a conference. There'd be a speaker, sometimes like presenting, sometimes running a hands-on workshop, sometimes leading a discussion. Or there are camp activities. So you might learn to canoe for the first time, or you might go out on a more challenging hike, or you might try rock climbing. And those are offered all throughout the day. So you can kind of decide. Some folks come and they never set a foot inside of a building, and they spend the whole time out on the lake or out in the mountains. And other folks just hang out in sessions, learning. Even another set of folks just come and sit by the campfire.
I love that.
and chat. Yeah. But there's opportunities really to meet you wherever you're at. Lots and lots of chances for you to share your own stories, but also to sit back and hear from other folks as well. Yeah. And then by the time Sunday comes, I think people are saying, oh my gosh, it's already Sunday and it's time to pack up and leave. But we try to keep people connected through online as much as we can through the online resources that we have, and give people opportunities to keep connecting with Connected in Motion, whether it's at another Slipstream, or we also offer adventure programs. So actual backpacking, canoeing, we've done surf camps, that sort of stuff, kind of as a next step.
Wow, it's amazing. I love hearing all that, and it makes me really excited. I think it's such a good blend of adventure, meeting people, creating community, but also just being in a space where you feel comfortable and safe to just like be yourself. So I think it's such a beautiful mix of what we all really need in that piece of community where we're trying something new. We might be nervous, but we also have all these people backing us up and encouraging us to, try something new. So I love it. Can you tell us more just like how someone can get started in the process if they're thinking about going to one? Maybe you can touch on like some of the ones that are coming up now or this year. Yeah, and just break it down for us.
Totally. And Val, I realize you asked too, like how we pick a location, and that kind of melds into this answer as well. And
Okay.
So we really see a mix of folks at programs that are already connected within their local diabetes community or are not connected at all. But typically when we pick a new location, it's because there's a group of local folks that have come and said, like, we need something here. Can we make it happen? And so, for example, this upcoming year, we have a brand new program that's happening in Georgia. And that's our first time bringing a program to Georgia, but that's because we are connected with a community there who's been really excited to kind of fill that gap for adults. There's a really thriving community for young people with diabetes, but not for folks once they turn 18. So that's kind of like how we find our new locations. But then how do people find us? So we try to connect as much as possible on the ground, with the local diabetes community, but also if it's an event we've been doing, like we've done multiple times, we try to help foster the growth of the community locally as well, and bringing all of the new people together. So we use those folks to kind of head out as our army to our street team to their local diabetes clinics to tell clinicians. So we hope that your clinicians know about Connected in Motion. Of course, there are so many throughout North America, so we don't hit all of them, but you can definitely find out through clinicians. People find out from posters that are up in their gym. People find out very often through social media. And then also we work with partners as much as possible. And so the Diabetes Link being one of those partners, we look for folks who have just really great connections and really great information and culture to bring to a program. And so often diabetes organizations and groups and clubs in areas will connect with to let them know that what's going on. I feel like there's also a part B and a part C to that question that I totally
Is there, so I know you guys started in Canada, correct?
Yes.
So are all Slipstreams just in Canada and just in the US? Or is there any like out of or like international locations? Have you guys stepped into that arena?
Oh, not yet. But you know what? This morning I was actually looking through files on my computer, and there's a file we have that's like, it's an asset, like image for social media that says Australia 2020. we had this dream, and like we actually were in the works to make our way to Australia in 2020, and then the world had other plans. But currently we are just in Canada and the US. And so for the first 5 years while we were running programs, we just ran them in Canada. And then we started to branch out into the United States. Our very first program was actually in the Pacific Northwest in the Orcas Islands in Washington. And that was in 2012. And we kind of felt it out to see how things would go, and it was awesome and amazing. And so we've branched out since then. This year we have programs in Ontario and Alberta in Canada, and then we have in Maine, in Colorado, and in Georgia in the US. We've also hosted programs in California, British Columbia, in Nova Scotia, in Canada, and in Washington.
Wow.
So expanding, but we haven't quite got out of that North America.
No, I think it's great.
Yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. Obviously, you guys are growing and you're making more connections all over. So I'm sure, and as we know, there's like needs for that, right? There's needs for these types of events and communities. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of see like how far you expand. And I'm like, dang, I missed those California ones. I'm in California. Awesome. Okay. And like, let us know, like, how do people get started? Like, how do they sign up? What does that process look like? And, how much time do they have before an event to sign up?
Yeah, so typically we launch all of our events for the year in January. So right now, every event is open for registration on the Connected in Motion website, and it's pretty clear. There's like a registration button on the website that you can use to find out what's going on. But in terms of registration, you're essentially just online signing up for an event. So we'll ask you information about yourself, your diabetes, and whatever we need as an organization to be able to make sure you have a really great weekend. So some preferences about like some food preferences, some like activity preferences. So we just get to know kind of what kind of group we have coming in. And then there is a registration fee as well, which largely covers like what we pay to the camp that we're using. So this year, those registration fees are $425. We also have subsidies available, and there is a link on the website to find out how you can apply for one of those subsidies. As a kind of a slight tangent, Connected in Motion also has an adventure team, which does a big trek every year. This year, they're doing a trek in the Grand Tetons. And that team's goal is to raise the money that we use to subsidize each of our programs and to provide subsidies for anyone who might have financial needs. So our goal is to never turn anyone away. But essentially, once you go on and sign up, registration closes 2 weeks before the event happens. But of course, we'd love to know earlier than that if you're planning on coming, because it helps us to kind of mold the schedule. We try to be really, really responsive to the group that's coming out. So if we see it's a larger group, and for us, that would be between 100 and 130 people, we'll make sure that we bring in a couple extra speakers, or we plan a couple extra outdoor activities. So maybe you have 8 choices in a time slot rather than 2 or 3. So that's why it's helpful for folks to register early. But essentially, once you're registered, you'll start hearing from us a month before the event. We'll send you things like a packing list. We'll send you pictures of the camp so you can kind of get a vibe of like where you'll be headed, very specific instructions on like how to get to camp and what to do when you get there. And also ways to hit us up with any questions that you might have that are not answered, so that you can feel super comfortable and great coming in. Because I do know I always commend people who come for the very first time without knowing anyone else with diabetes, because that's a lot to like drive to a summer camp, not knowing really what you're going to expect, into a group, like a group of people you've never met. I'd say like 50% of folks are usually brand new, and then 50% have been to something before. So it's a really good mix. But I really do commend those folks who that's really pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and those people are awesome.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. And do you feel like most of the people that are attending are from that area? Or do you also have like a percentage of people that are like flying to come to these events?
Totally. I'd say 50% are local and 50% travel. It's like a pretty good split. And we've had folks come from all over the world, which is so exciting. Our next program is coming up in Maine. And for a number of years, we had a gal that flew in from Australia. And so not only was she flying all the way, but like adjusting to the time zone, and then adjusting to like life with diabetes in the US, which is different than in Australia. And it's always been like exciting to see those folks come in, because what a cool trip, but also so many experiences that are new.
Totally. That's amazing. Yeah. That's exciting for her too. It is awesome. I mean, you're really going outside your comfort zone in so many different ways. And it's inspiring for other people to see that. So I love it. Okay, what is kind of like the criteria, like who's the candidate to go to a slipstream? Like, is there age limits? Yeah, let us know.
Yeah. So the youngest you can be is 18. And that's just because our camps are officially for adults. Our Slipstream programs are officially for adults. You also have to be living with type 1 diabetes. Now, there have been, we have done some other programs. We have done a teen program. We have done a program for partners of people with diabetes. But this year, all of our programs are for adults 18 plus with type 1 diabetes. But other than that, we've had participants, our oldest participant has been 82 years old, which is so amazing. And it's just like the stories that we get from the vast wide range of experiences, ages, backgrounds, it's really, really incredible. So I would say that like it's actually hard for me to think of someone who would not be a good fit. But to like ease everyone's minds, we really do put a lot of work into planning the schedule so that there are opportunities no matter where you're at in terms of your comfortability with outdoors, in terms of fitness, in terms of your diabetes experience, that you can kind of always find something that is okay for you. Also, we're always evolving. So a number of years ago, a group had an idea to create a diabetes dictionary that we would put out, because if anyone is familiar with diabetes events, like we seem to love acronyms like a lot. And if you are newly diagnosed, the acronyms that are getting thrown around, like your CGM, T1s, T2s, like it's just like there's like so much out there, can be challenging. And so that's like an example of a tool that we've learned and put together so that we can help make it just a little bit easier for folks who might be newly diagnosed, but also something that our veterans can contribute to and can help us to continue to grow. But yeah, you can always reach out and ask us for more information, but we very often get the question like, is this for me? And rarely like have we said no. We can almost always like create an experience that will work for you, or it's already created in the schedule, and you just kind of have to choose the path that fits you where you're at.
I love that. I know I was just going to ask you what's the most asked question, but I think that makes sense. I'm sure people are like, ooh, there's a lot of outdoor activities. Like, I haven't done rock climbing or I haven't been in a canoe. So I love that you have instructors to support people in trying things for the first time. And that kind of takes away that nervous feeling of going into something new. So that's great. Is there any other like most asked question that you want to hit on?
People are always interested in like where they're going to sleep.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering that too.
Right. So it always varies camp to camp, but every Slipstream has its own webpage on our website, and we download photos from the camp and upload them. And we always try to have pictures of the inside of the cabins, but something that we really, very often they're bunk beds. Very often it's a bunk bed in a shared cabin with maybe 8 bunk beds. We work though to try to only ever occupy bottom bunks. Now that doesn't mean you can't be on a top bunk. Like there's lots of people who love themselves a top bunk, which is great, but we because we're working with adults, we don't want to force anyone to have to use a top bunk. That also means we can have less bodies per cabin, but largely what you can expect is you have heat and heat if it's somewhere that needs heat, electricity in the cabins. There's often washrooms or bathrooms, I'm Canadian, restrooms in the inside the cabins or just outside on the decks of the cabins. And when you get to camp, we will usually have set all of the cabins up so that there are some that are non-gendered, some that are women only, some that are men only, sometimes we have the early to bed cabins. Like if you're someone who wants it to be like quiet after 8, and we have early to bed cabins. Sometimes we have the not early to bed cabins, but we will try to set those up so that you can always find a place that you're comfortable with. And we also will often, like when you show up at camp, have a welcoming committee there that will help to introduce you to people who are kind of like in the same boat, either maybe people who are at the last event and you want to bunk with them, or people who are all brand new and you want to bunk with them, and help to facilitate that to make things as smooth and easy as possible. But I'd say not as it's not as campy as you might think. Like we try to have really high standards when we look at at facilities and places that adults would enjoy.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about food? What does like food look like? Do people bring their own low snacks? Is that provided?
Yeah, so food is always provided by the camp. Essentially, we are renting the camp for the weekend, and then the camp provides the activities. We tell them what to provide, but that's also the same with food. So that's one of the biggest jobs we have actually, is working with the kitchen, because we consider ourselves a pretty needy group, or a pretty demanding group in terms of food. There's always gluten-free options, and occasionally some camps will make the entire menu gluten-free without like you feeling like it's gluten-free. Like they'll be very conscious to have like taco night and everything just happens to be gluten-free, that's out. But if not, there's always allergy sensitive and food sensitive options. And then we just work really hard to make sure the menus are things we would all want to eat. So you're not like eating beans and hot dogs. Like we're having like taco nights, or we're having like chicken and rice and vegetables. There's usually always a salad bar. There's usually always fruit bowls out. There's always coffee. There's always tea. If you do, some folks do come and sometimes have a little bit more of a more specialized diet or eat very low carb. We accommodate for traditionally low carb, but like very low carb, we'll ask people to supplement and bring their own. There's almost always a fridge that you can keep food in if you do want to bring your own, or if you're just someone who's nervous about food, you can totally bring your own stuff. We also supply low supplies in all of the cabins, but encourage people to bring their favorites, because it's often glucose tabs and like, or fruit snacks, and maybe that's not what your favorite is. And so you can totally always bring your own. All of our camps are nut free. That's the only one big asterisk, and that's largely their children's camps as well that are nut free. So we stick with their rules. And then I don't want to bite my tongue, but yes, every camp this year, there is an occasion that we have a camp that is alcohol free, but all of our camps this year are not. And so if you are 21 and plus, you are welcome to like bring a beverage to enjoy around the campfire in the evening. And we'll have more information about that as well, but we'll provide non-alcoholic drinks. So there's always lots of soda and sugar-free juices and fun mocktails and stuff if folks prefer as well.
That's awesome. That sounds amazing. I was like, I got hungry. Just thinking. That's great. Okay. And then for my last question, I wanted to just ask you, like, what is one of your favorite like stories or experiences at a Slipstream, or like something funny that really impacted you, or even just like your favorite part of attending Slipstreams?
Yeah, I think so I've been to a lot of Slipstreams. And everyone, when I say that, everyone has totally its own vibe. Like Ontario, where I live, is where we started Slipstream. So we're getting ready to host our 15th, like been here a really long time. But then we'll sometimes roll in. So in Alberta, where we're hosting our Western Slipstream, this is the first time at that camp, and like such a total different experience. So I feel like I could tell 10 different stories, because everywhere that we go is so different. But I think like the most impactful thing for me is knowing that like this group of folks come in on Friday, most of them having never met, some of them having met, but they're by no means best friends, right? Like you've met once or twice at a diabetes event. And then go through all of these shared experiences. And one of the things that we do to kind of close out the weekend, there's a few different options, but my favorite is we'll do small gratitude circles, and just the opportunity to get together with 10 people and share something that made an impact on you on the weekend or from the weekend. And I think that to me, it's just so amazing how really, like we say 3 days, but like you have been there for not even 48 hours. Like it's not 3 full days, but the things that have impacted folks and just the like how transformative those few hours together can be for people is really amazing. And I think that's my most favorite. Like I like get emotional even just thinking about the things that I've heard people share, but seeing that like it can be so life-changing, and life-changing for people who this is their first experience connecting, but also life-changing for people who are just burnt out and have given up and need a break. And now they're being rejuvenated because they've connected with so many other people who say like, me too. Yeah, I got that. And so I think I'm lucky because I've seen that happen over and over, but I look forward to that no matter what. I look forward to like, however that last kind of piece is facilitated, hearing everyone's stories and seeing kind of how everyone's about to head back out into the world a like slightly different person than when they arrived just not long before.
I love that. Yeah, it's like you get to see all the magic coming true for so many people. I think that's so special, and I look forward to experiencing that, because it is nice to see like what is everyone receiving and like giving at this type of event. And I feel like there's so much like magic and light that comes from that. So I think that's great. And I think that's such a special moment to have at every Slipstream, because yeah, it impacts everyone in such different ways.
Well, and I would say I look forward to like every single Slipstream has like something that happens that like is like the memorable thing. And whether it's like someone on the high ropes course who like gets stuck, and then the entire group like comes together to like get them unstuck. And like 10 years later, you're still talking about that time Luke was up on the ropes course and and what happened. Like there's always something that's so memorable, and I think that that's a really neat thing too, because regardless of how the group changes year after year, like you have so many individual moments at your Slipstream that will like bond that group together. So I really look forward to this year and hearing what what are all those things that are going to be those bonding incidents.
Totally. Oh
For
my
20.
gosh. Yeah, that's great. That's so funny. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we are so happy to be partnered with you this year. For anyone in our audience and in our community, we have a few codes for some of our chapter members and alumni to join Slipstreams this year. Some of our team will be at a couple of the Slipstreams this year. So we are super excited to see you there. We will continue to share where we'll be and what we will be doing. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you, Jen, for sharing. I know this is going to get people really excited and just kind of knowing like the backstory and what they can expect.
Awesome. Thanks, Val. I'm looking forward to this year.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.